How many friends do you have that are not the same color as you, that don't think the same way as you, that don't act the same way as you? I mean, if we just take it back to when you and I first met, we were just totally different. I mean, I was this quiet guy coming into boot camp. You had been there for a while. You knew everyone, and you were trying to really get to know me, but I didn't want to get to know you because I just saw you as probably just another typical white guy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, just another typical white guy.
Okay.
Probably.
How you doing? Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yes.
Concepts and ideas about things. So good to talk about whatever you're going to talk about today.
Well, right. I wanted to talk about, we had a conversation several months ago about the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything currently going on. So I wanted to retouch base with you. And I think we had a good conversation. As always, I think in general, there's a lot of things we agree on, some things we disagree on, but we always have, I feel, great conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always do.
Respectful, insightful, want to hear, want to understand. So that's why I always love talking to you.
I think that's what makes a good conversation. If we enter into a conversation, not trying to convince the other person that they're wrong, but just truly listen to what that person is saying, you can come off with a better understanding of that individual and have a good relationship and a strengthened relationship of and appreciating and enjoying that person a little bit more, So,
well, that's a good point. Strengthening actually is what it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I always walk away like, you know what, John, dude, he's all right, man. As opposed to, you know what, I'm not gonna let this white dude call me anymore and talk about anything else. He just gets under my skin.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you're able to think at a higher resolution, right, with more detail and nuance in the conversation, that's for me when it gets interesting, right? We can hear these people all day long call out this news organization or that news organization and the hypocrisy, and this person said that, and then the hypocrisy all day long. That's boring to me.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? What can we do to make this place a better place? That's where I want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important to call out stuff. It's important to see hypocrisy, but I don't know, it's not us against them.
Right. And that's what makes the world such a good place to live in, is when you can have these variety of people coming together, whether it's culture, ethnicities, with different thoughts and ideas. That's what makes it work. I mean, It would be a pretty boring place if the world was just made up of people like me.
Right.
I get tired of listening to myself. So imagine having to do that every day for the rest of my life. It's not going to be good.
No, that's true. I know we do. I mean, I don't know if we come from diverse backgrounds or that diverse of a background, but we do in some ways.
Yeah.
But here we are. We must have something in common, and I think that is trying to be better every day.
Yeah.
Caring about others, integrity, moral compass. I've screwed that all up in all those areas, and I see the value of being better. And that's why we're here today. So I wanted to check in with you on, we had so many conversations or so many topics when we spoke last. I don't know where to start, but so what's your current take on everything that's going on with, like, say, the protests, BLM? There's been many shootings since then.
Yeah.
Where are you at generally with all this?
Generally, I'm in a pretty good place because I have a compass that's not going to try to dig too deep into something that I know is not going to be, is not going to be resolved overnight. So I'm in a pretty good place. My take on everything that's happening right now is that we're living in a world that's full of or there's a lack of empathy going on right now. I think that once we understand what it's like to walk in another person's shoes, we're going to feel a little differently about them and about the situation that's going on around our lives. So
right.
that would be the one word that I would say is lacking here, is just a sense of, just a sense of empathy.
So how do you suggest we get that empathy back?
walk in that person's shoes. I think.
Well, right, but I mean, yes, but how do you and me affect change in this world to get people to that, to even see the value of empathy? I mean, where does that stem from, right?
Yeah.
Or
I think each individual is going to have to do their part. For example, one, and you were trying to really get to know me, but I didn't want to get to know you because I just saw you as probably just another typical white guy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, just another typical white guy that has probably gone through some things, and I have enough people like that. So you pretty much broke the ice and allowed me to start talking to you. Well, I don't know if you remember, one of the first things you said is, I don't know how it came about, but you asked, so you're a Christian, right? I don't know if it's because of something I had said to someone else in the group.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And here's what you said next. You said, so you believe what a bunch of dead guys say about what the world is like, huh? And
I don't remember that. That sounds so insulting and such a jerk thing to say.
You can ask Enrico. And I came home and I said, this guy asked me, he said something very strange. He said, you believe what a bunch of dead guys have to say about the world? And I said, yeah. I just walked away. And this went on for a couple of weeks with you saying some strange things. We had a competition one day that the commander had us do, and my group came in last place, and she was announcing the winners. And you may have been in the first group to win or the second group. And I said to Commander, I said, well, according to the Bible, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. That's when you said, oh, so you believe what a bunch of dead people say. That's when that thought came into play.
See, I don't understand that, though. A bunch of dead people.
People that have written the Bible are no longer with us. And so.
Yeah, I don't know. So I apologize. That's just I mean, I know I was joking in a way because I'll back up my thoughts on stuff, but that was really, that was stupid. So.
What I remember is you would try to, and you just said things that would really get people to go. And I wasn't about to let you get mine. Right. I was not about to allow you to cause me to behave in a way that was unbecoming of me, although now we laugh and joke and talk a lot about different things. Back then, coming into a new group, and I don't know this guy, so I'm not going to say anything to him.
Right.
Just because I need to be safe in what I might say or how I might respond to what he's saying.
Now, okay, so that's good. Now, why is that? Because you feel because you're black, I'm white, there's potentially something dangerous there in me, or not even necessarily physical, but just dangerous in the sense of being mean or making enemies.
Yeah, I think any black person, when they enter into a group and they are the only black person there or the only person that looks like them, they're going to enter into that situation with a little hesitancy about everyone. About, I don't know how they're going to think about me. I don't know how they're going to view me. And since I don't know them, let me just take my time getting to know them before I just allow them to see who I really am.
Right. So, now, do you think that's based solely on color?
Yeah, definitely on color. Yeah. And that's the world that we live in.
So if I go into an environment that's reversed, do you think I should feel the same way?
You shouldn't feel the same way, but you didn't grow up the way that I did. So you
But I do, but I would.
You would what?
I would go into, let's say, a group of black people, and I would feel odd man out.
Oh, okay, good. I was getting ready to justify why I feel that way and other black people feel that way. So why would you feel like the odd man out?
Because I'm in a group that I don't know these people. I'm bringing it to color because I asked that, but ultimately it would be any group. It could be another group of white people. I don't know them. Yeah. So that's just how we act naturally. I don't naturally assign it to color. And that's where I get real curious, but go ahead.
Yeah. But, and that's good. We will assign it to color because our history has been tainted so much by the white man. So naturally, when we get into a group of white people, we're going to be a little hesitant about anything that we do. Now, we have our prejudices against any group of people that's not like us. If I enter a group of Asians, I'm going to think, okay, have I ever been harmed by Asian people? What are their thoughts about me?
Mm-hmm.
Because every race has thoughts about another race.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can all come up with our
stereotypes. Yeah.
Yeah, about another race. And so with that, we enter into a situation with some hesitancies and inhibitions about how close we're going to be with this group or how comfortable we're going to be with this group.
True.
Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to understand. So from your perspective, it's because of things that have happened to you by white people that jades that, or is it what you've been taught white people have done to black people that jade, or not jade you? Sorry, that
that's an interesting question. Yeah. I believe that racism is taught. I don't believe it's caught. I believe that it is taught.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were not taught to hate anyone. We were taught to fight and stand up for what was right, and to be to present ourselves in a way that shows them that there is nothing about us that's going to bring harm to you. So now, I'm not going to say that this is true of all black people, or let me just say African Americans. I know some black people don't want to be called African Americans. It's got that disparity thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say black people. For some black families, they were not taught that. We're not taught to hate people, period, of any race. We're just not taught that. However, because of the heavy influence that white society has had in mistreating us and not looking at us as equals, when we walk into a situation, all those things that have happened to us over the years, we still have in the back of our head. Has it really changed?
Mm-hmm.
Has anything changed to where it's so different to where I'm not going to walk into this situation and not feel uncomfortable? And I think with the current situation of the racial unrest that we have now,
mm-hmm.
I think all those old feelings that we've worked hard to try to put behind us,
mm-hmm.
they're now floating to the front of us again when
mm-hmm.
we think about those things.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it does. I'm just wondering though, how much has been, have you been actually harmed by a white person or society versus how much you've just been told you've been harmed by the white man?
That's an interesting statement that you're making. I don't know that there's any in my generation of people. I don't know that there's any black person that has been told how bad white people are. We've experienced
mm-hmm.
The injustice and the prejudice and the lack of sympathy or empathy for us, whatever word you want to choose. We've experienced that ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this generation of people, my generation, we know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my son has experienced some aspect of that, but not to the degree that I have. And when I say some aspect of it, he's been stopped and he's been profiled because he looked a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So all black people have been profiled to some degree, just by the mere fact that we are different. We're going to be profiled right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but your daughter brings home a black man that's the first sign of a
I'm calling you
black person. Huh?
That happens, I'm calling you.
Yeah. So when your daughter brings, and I'm not saying Sophia, I'm
I know,
speaking in general. When that happens, the first thing that father's going to think about is why does she choose a black guy? Does he have a job? Has he brought?
But how do you know that? I'm not saying you're not correct that doesn't happen, but we have to be very specific about that. Does it happen? We'll both agree yes. Now, how much of that happens? Like when you say, does he have a job or this, and that? I would think that of anybody they brought home. That wouldn't be my instant thought. I would look and just like you, size the man up and down and be like, does he have, what's he doing? How's he wear? How's he dress? What's his demeanor? What's his attitude? What's his intentions? And let's say they're dating and I get to know this person. Yeah. Do you have a job in the sense of, it depends if they're in school, let's say, are you working part-time? What are you planning on doing? How is your character? I don't care what color. The problem I think I see is there's too much crossover here because it sounds like what happens over here is very normal and logical for human beings in general. And then what happens over here, the same thing happens, but the view gets assigned to some color or it gets assigned to some alternative way of thinking that it just gets assigned, oh, it must be this, or I'm thinking this because of that, or I got pulled over because of this, and that. This goes back to where I remember when you got a ticket for when the cell phone law came out in California for just holding your phone. And we were talking, you're like, yeah, this and that. And I go, yeah, I just got one like a month ago. And you're like, really? I was like, yeah, I could tell. I don't even know if we might even like had that, but I'm like, they're just giving it to everybody. And I think you were actually a little relieved in the sense that you thought maybe it was just more personal. So yeah. The ultimate question is what causes that? Because the only way to get past all that is to figure out what causes it and change our thinking. So if I was grown up in a screwed up family, which I was, and then I started acting out in those ways of the programming, that's all I've ever known, well, then I'm going to get the results of that programming. Pretty simple. Right. I had to work very hard to wipe my hard drive, reload onto it what I wanted on purpose, and then began executing that new program and practice. Right. So even my neighbor 2 doors down, Ralston, he's black. He's a Marine. And he's a good guy, you know? And we had this conversation not that long ago, and he's talking about, he goes, I live in a suburban white neighborhood. My neighbors are all white. I mean, we're actually mixed. You know, there's Indian, there's Hispanic, there's whatever. I don't even know, right? All of us. And he goes, but yeah, occasionally I get looks or this or that. And we didn't go into it as to, is that just your perception or is it something else, right? And then he called me yesterday morning and was like, hey, can I unfurl your flag? Because we both have American flags. Mm-hmm. And he came over and he unfurled the flag for me because mine had wrapped around. We had talked earlier about I need to get it so it swings instead of just wraps around, right? And that was a very nice thing he did. Like that really warms my heart because it's something we both, you know, the American flag, we like to fly it. We appreciate this country, so on and so forth. I don't know. I just don't really see color to that extent, but of course I see color. I see anything. I see white people that are derelicts, you know, in the corner, you know, smoking pot or stealing something, you know, from a store or whatever it may be, or Antifa and all these guys running around. Yes, I see all that. And I think it's just a big mess until we start to actually stop and think, which is what I'm, you know, trying to hopefully do with this conversation here. So I go back to what I'm saying is what part of that is your perception and then what part of it is real. And again, of course, there's stuff real. I don't mean that at all. Right. I've been called by a black person, you know, white or, you know, honky, this and that, disparaging names. It's like, it's out there.
Right. So you asked what percent of that is real and what part of it is my perception. Mm-hmm. I would say 90% of it is real. Mm-hmm. There's a book out called White Fragility. Mm-hmm. And white society is against this book because the author puts in there that there is a white sense of privilege that goes on with white America. Mm-hmm. And white America hates to hear the fact that they feel that they are superior or privileged in so many ways. But that is the truth of the matter. You are a rare breed, and you're not the only one, but you and other people like you are rare breeds, and that you have, I would venture out to say that the life that you lived, as you alluded to earlier, your jacked up family life, I think that has made you a better rounded person, that you see life and have a worldview that's different from anyone else that may have been raised with a family where you got along with the mother and the dad and had this complete family. I think you're going to be a little different than that because it has caused you to adjust to live life differently and see people differently and know that, hey, this is not just white society. This happens all over America. But
it's patterns. I see it from a global view or 50,000 foot level. Yeah. The people that don't, the more you drill down into the less resolution, it becomes just black and white, right? It becomes one side versus the other, one idea versus another, and that's it. An ideology possession that takes over your whole way of thinking. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people out there that think like I do. We're just not out there pushing that. We're all busy doing our day. Go on TikTok, go on social media. There's black and white people all day long talking, helping each other, friends. Like, it's not even, there's so much out there, but this narrative in that book, just so you know, is I think pretty disgusting because it's very destructive. And I'll explain in the sense of that privilege you're talking about, right? Do I have a privilege? Yeah. Do you have a privilege? Yes. Does your son have a privilege? Huh?
Those privileges are different, though.
But yeah. Right, but the definition of the word is privilege, right? So if we, as an analogy, right, we talk about the 1%ers in America, right? The top earners that just have so much money, or the 2%ers, right? So when you get to 2%, you could be making $100,000. My numbers are whatever, 3%. You're making $100,000 or more a year.
Right.
So then the rest of us are the 97%ers. But compared to the world, a poor person here is 1% compared to the world. Because go around the world where they're making, $3 a day and not minimum wage, and they don't have a cell phone and they don't have all this stuff. The privilege, quote unquote privilege, is much higher in America with almost the poorest of people compared to the poorest of people around the country. Mm-hmm. So there's a privilege gap, right? So if we go to a mindset, it's what I call a mindset privilege. That's what I have. I have a mindset privilege because I worked very hard to overcome that. I didn't get it from my father. My father bragged about never reading a book after high school, except a TV guide, right? That's what he read. That was it. And he literally would brag on many occasions, well, not many, like every, month, but on several occasions that, I never read a book. So, right. So he's celebrating his ignorance. Mm-hmm. My daughter, your son, your family, they sit around, they watch us read. They watch us educate ourselves. They watch us exchange ideas. They watch us, as my daughter sits here watching us right now, something you and I probably didn't necessarily get, or maybe I think you probably got it better than I do because your father was a pastor, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So you at least saw him reading the Bible, professing ideas. I got none of that. I got ridiculed. So you had a privilege over me in that. And that's my point. At the end of the day, the intersectionality of this privilege versus that privilege versus this color versus one parent family, two parent family, the family around you, the extended family, right? Where do we mark this all on the chart? And who's most oppressed? Is it because are you more privileged because you had a 2-parent family versus somebody who only had a 1-parent family? And then that 1-parent family, the dad was around, but in another 1-parent family, the dad wasn't around. And then in another 1-parent family, the mom was around. In another 1-parent family, the mom was a drug addict or what, right? We can keep going down that all day on who had it worse. So there's plenty of white people that have experienced all that too.
I get that. That was a great statement that you made there. I cannot argue with any of that. But let me just say, we're talking about privileges here, but we're talking about a different type of privilege. So in Thomas Jefferson's Call to Freedom, he says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, mm-hmm. that all men are created equal. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, when you think about white America, has white America treated all men equally?
No.
No. And that's
regardless of color.
Regardless of color.
Some worse than others because of color.
Yeah. Some worse than others because of color. And that's where we are today. Because we are different, then that's that white privilege that we're talking about. We're not talking about a family that I've come from, or that Sophie has a privilege of coming from, having a great dad like you. We're not talking about those types of privileges. We're talking about the justice. We're talking about, am I going to get a fair handshake like the white guy did? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be allowed to go to school where this white guy goes? Do I have that same privilege, or am I going to be an outcast?
Right.
There was a time when black schools was needed because we couldn't go to the white schools.
Right.
I think that time for just having an all black school or an all white school, I think those days are over. Mm-hmm. We should never just claim, hey, we're a black school for black people. Right. That's just going to continue to perpetuate all the racial injustice that's going on.
I
Or
agree.
should we say white schools are good? You're continuing to perpetuate all the racial injustice that's going on by saying that we're our side, you're your side, go and do it. That was a great thing about Malcolm X and Booker T. Washington and some of the other civil rights movements that was happening out there. We weren't trying to. A lot of people think that Malcolm X was trying to get Black America to say white America is bad and we need to do our own thing. No, he wasn't saying that. He was saying, look, why can't we do the same thing that everyone else does? So what he was saying was, if a white person comes to me and points a gun at me, I have the same right to protect myself and point a gun at him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the difference between he and King was saying, look, I don't want any violence at all. If a white man points a gun at you, you know what, do everything you can to protect yourself, but don't pull one. And Malcolm was saying, no, if he hits me in the face and I'm supposed to be equal to him, I have a right to hit him back in the face just like he did me. He hit me for no reason. I'm going to hit him for hitting me.
Well, right. We're all created equal.
Yeah,
I get it.
Created equal, but that's not how white America sees that. So in this book, White Fragility, she's pointing out that we're not all created equal. There is a privilege that white people have that's not given to everyone else.
Right. So how do you get that privilege then? Like I said at the beginning of this, what do we do? Because we can go back and forth all day, but at the end of the day, what do we do? That's why I say it starts with a mindset, because nothing will change until the mindset changes. So when you continue to perpetuate that idea, regardless of whether white people are perpetuating it, let's say, you're going to keep receiving. It's like Mother Teresa said, never take me to an anti-war rally. Invite me when it's a love rally. I'm totally butchering that, but the intention was bring me towards something, or invite me to a march for love, for peace, when it's in the positive is what you want, right?
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Right.
So that all starts with the mindset of understanding that we are free. Stop acting the fool. You don't think when a white guy gets pulled over that's totally sketchy and a derelict and an idiot, he's treated different than, let's say, me?
Absolutely.
Right.
He is aware that I'm probably going to be treated differently because I've been drinking and I am a derelict and I don't look like I should be doing what I'm doing right now. I look like something is going on with me. But what about a person like my son, who is simply coming from McDonald's, having gotten a Happy Meal, so to speak, just like everyone else that was in line before him, and yet he looks like someone that was probably doing something wrong, but he hasn't done anything wrong, and he gets pulled over. So that's the difference.
Well, what do you mean looks like? Was there a call for somebody that somebody called in?
That drove a car like his, that had a hoodie on like him.
Well, then what? Then yeah, he matches the description. You don't know.
Matches the description.
Do you have police friends? Do you know anybody that's a cop?
Say that again.
Do you know anyone that's a police officer?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. Have you ever been on a ride along?
I understand that if you're fitting a certain profile, then you're going to be stopped. But once they pulled him over and fully recognized that was not the person, they still detained him. Well, maybe he's lying or something. Maybe he switched hoodies or something. I don't know. Just imagine anything that's going on.
Right.
And that's what we think when we're pulled over. It's like, okay, I know I haven't done anything, but I don't know if they're going to assume something else. I don't know if they're going to create something else. I don't know what's going to go on. And I understand from both sides. The cop is approaching a car. He doesn't know what he's going to get either. The civilian is standing in the car, doing everything he's supposed to, hands on the steering wheel.
Put my hands on. I tell my daughters.
Sure nothing's happening. He's thinking, but what if this guy is having a bad day? What am I going to do? So there's some tension on both sides. But the reason it's a little heavier on our side is because it has been shown and proven time and time again that something will go wrong, that police officer is not going to understand, or that police officer may be having a bad day, or he may have just come back from Black Lives Matter that was supposed to be peaceful, and it turned out that one black person in the crowd did something, and he was hit by it, so now he's got the attitude, there's another black person, no, dude, I'm just going to write you up anyway. I'm going to get you.
Well, there is bad cops out there. Just let me preface that by saying
the fear that we have is that we get one of those bad cops.
Right.
And what has been happening now is that that's what's happening. We see these bad cops that are interrogating innocent black people or treating them in a way that they shouldn't be treated. I mean,
but that happens on the other side too.
Yeah, it happens on the other side too.
Bad cops are bad cops. I think it's so rare when you get down to the point where somebody is like, so there's bad cops and then there's like a racist bad cop, let's say. By the time you drill down to that, I think the percentages are minute. Does it happen? Of course it happens. And can one day be worse than the other if he had stopped you on one day versus another? Yes, I get it. But that's the society we live in this world in general. We can't nerf all the edges. We can't make everything so perfect. We can never have an equality of outcome. We can have an equality of opportunity, but you can't have an equality of outcome. You know, that's like the equality of outcome analogy would be me giving both my girls going to the amusement park, giving them each, you know, equal amount of money and saying, you need to go have an equal amount of fun.
Right.
It's impossible. Right. So unless we try to live in such a perfect society that we lock everybody down and forego everybody's freedoms, you're going to have somebody that's screwed up. I'm just saying we have to set that straight first, that stuff is going to happen. You're going to have a good surgeon, a bad surgeon, a good doctor. I mean, they're taking off the wrong limbs, right? They got the left and the right backwards. Right. So we have to at least acknowledge that. Now, when you work backwards from that, okay, what do we do? So we still continue to try to improve. We still continue to try to make things better. We have these conversations. I think we need more funding of the police in the sense of they need more education. They need more training. They should be training a lot more, and they should be having the mental health services to help them out as well.
Right. And that's you're asking, what can we do? That's one of the things that we can do to change what's happening here. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate ourselves about Black society. We need to educate ourselves about the Asian culture. We need to educate ourselves about every culture that's out there so that we don't have these prejudices that are going on. I think we're all prejudiced. But then when that prejudice that we have starts shrinking down to us becoming a little racist, now we have a problem. Mm-hmm. I don't like being in a group of just all Black people. Mm-hmm. I like being in a group of just all white people, all Hispanic. I don't like that. I like being in a group of people where we're all different. Mm-hmm. Now that's my prejudice. That's the attitude that I have about groups of people. Mm-hmm. One may not feel that way, but that's what prejudice is. Just an attitude.
It's almost a preference. Huh? Prejudice is a preference on some level.
It's a preference on some levels, yeah. So when we can start educating ourselves about those things, it's going to eliminate a lot of things.
Right. Knowledge is power, right? The old cliche.
Yeah.
But so, or sorry, go ahead.
Let me say this. Let me say this real quick. Just from a personal standpoint, and I'm not going to call out any particular race or culture, but I had this prejudice against a culture and race of people. And 3 years ago, I had an encounter, and it just changed my worldview of everything because I had to educate myself about being with this group of people. It just changed my whole idea about everything, mm-hmm. how they are, who they are, how much family means to them. And when we get down to the bare tactics of everything, man, we're all alike. You know, Black people love their families just like white people. White people love their families just like Hispanic people love their families. We mm-hmm. all love family, but we look at them differently and think that we treat differently and we act differently, but it's not that way. We're all the same.
Well, it's cultural in the sense of the way we act or what we eat or whatever, which again, for me personally, I find fascinating because I love to explore the different cultures and you know, understand, like when you're traveling, I want to go to the authentic part. If I go to Rome, yeah, I'll see the Colosseum, but I'd rather go to some little city outside of Rome and try to hang with the locals.
Yeah. That's the last time we were in Beirut, Lebanon, when the host of the, I was a guest speaker at a friend of mine's church there in Lebanon. And when he sent the host to come and pick us up, he wanted to take us to get something to eat, and he wanted to go to a local McDonald's. I think there was a Wendy's there. Mm-hmm. And he said, we don't want to eat food at, we can do this back in America.
Right.
We wanted to see how you live, where you would go and eat a nice meal. Where would you go? And he was happy to do it, but he just assumed that you guys are Americans, so let me do the American thing. Right. Show you how westernized we're becoming now. But I don't want that.
I know. Yeah. When I went to Norway, over time, you'd watch like a McDonald's pop up, or you'd watch this pop up or that pop up or whatever. And it was like, I come here because of what you guys have and represent. This modernization and mechanization, and then everybody starts gaining weight in Norway, which they were super skinny, but they were having a problem. It was like in the paper with all this junk food. So it ruined it.
Take that same thought process that you have there, and let's apply it to everyone when they go and visit another place. So if they go to a foreign country, they want to still live like an American. It's like, then why did you even come here?
Right.
So let's do the same thing with what's happening now with the racial injustice. If you say that you want to treat everyone equally, think about where in your life have you not done that because someone said something.
Mm-hmm.
When the whole Floyd case happened, a friend of mine told me who's married to someone of a different race. He said to me that when he spoke to his father-in-law said, well, he had 3 strikes against him because he'd done some jail time. It's like, what does that have to do with putting your foot on his neck?
Right.
His
knee.
And
it's even worse.
Yeah. So what does it have to do with anything? But that's from our lack of education. See, we tend to think that everybody that's in jail is there because they did something wrong.
Well, that's thinking at a low resolution. That's just like, it's easy to just brush it away, excuse it, sweep it under the rug, and not have to think about it. When you think about it, that's why when this all started, I watched the full video, full length, every second, and I just grew angrier and angrier. I wanted to jump through that phone and tackle that cop. It just, regardless of what he did.
Yeah.
And even when the additional information came out that he couldn't breathe or he had, X amount of whatever drug in his system, it's like, it doesn't matter. For 8 minutes and 45 seconds, you wouldn't do that to anyone. No. And if he was on drugs or he did have problems, even more of a reason to not do something like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't a threat.
You would probably get more support from a community of people if we treated a dog like that than you did this young man.
Well, I don't know, because everybody I listen to, everybody I know, even the fringe people who I don't listen to on the right side, they were all saying this was terrible.
Yeah.
That was a problem. We were all actually united because we were all disgusted. And I think disgust is a good word. Angry and disgusted. And then the protest and I don't know, protests are fine. I love it. Your First Amendment right.
It's the people that come to the protests that
ruined it. You know how many videos there are of like these little skinny white bastards in the protest breaking windows and starting stuff, and there's black people going, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're making us look bad." Right?
Absolutely.
Because there's an ulterior motive, which we won't get into, in my opinion, that we won't get into in this conversation, that is using a crisis to further their agenda. And this does circle back into
their beliefs as well, their agenda and their beliefs.
Right. Well, and this circles back into the point of a mindset, of a privileged mindset or whatever. So do you allow people to lie to you? Do you get your information from news sources? Like, I don't believe anything necessarily. I fact check. I think my BS meter's pretty good, and I don't really post anything on Facebook, but it comes to a point where I'm like, if somebody is more on the side of what I'm thinking and I see a post or a meme, I'll fact check that. And I've gone back and like, this didn't even happen. You look foolish. You're making it look worse. Okay. Or you're dumber, making us look dumber.
So going back to what we were saying earlier, education. You're educating yourself. You're doing the facts for yourself. You're not just taking what someone else is saying, and you're educating yourself on doing that. And we don't do enough of that. So there are a number of things that need to take place for this world to become different than it is. So we can't just say there's just one thing.
No.
We believe that if we educate ourselves, it's going to be inclusive of so many other core values that we need to change about ourselves to see how change can come about if we just educate ourselves.
Right.
So let me get back to this white privilege thing again, just so I can fully explain the point that I'm making about the white privilege. So there are different types of privileges that we have, but at the same time, I believe that what this book, White Fragility, is pointing out is that because we are white, or because you are white, there are certain uh, justices that are going to happen to you that will not happen to other people that are not of color.
In the justice system, particularly?
Yeah, the justice system.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
I mean, you take a look at when you get a chance. I think we mentioned this the last time we spoke. Go and listen or watch the movie on Netflix called 13.
Yes. Yes, I will watch that. No, but you did tell me. Yeah. I lost my piece of paper. I wrote it down.
It's a great movie. It just brought back some things that we had been taught in school that I kind of questioned, but kind of knew. But then this just kind of solidifies it. Mm-hmm. When you start talking about the government, you're being told that the government is someone that you can trust.
No, I'm all for small government, just as a statement.
Yeah. And what we were taught is that, the government is ran by people just like you and I, mm-hmm. and people will make mistakes. People will win an office that shouldn't be in office. So you cannot trust the government. It's because it's ran by people, mm-hmm. even though the preamble to the Constitution says we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, you think it's being ran by people like us that would say, okay, this guy's bad, let's get him out. Right. It doesn't work that way.
Well, not anymore, because they've learned how to game the system.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's become so corporatized that the corporations are the one. I love capitalism, but I hate corporatism, because that's taking capitalistic gain, getting to a certain point of power or influence, and then enacting that influence in government to benefit them, which usually screws a lot of other people.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And so we have to start working on each individual personality, each individual education, each individual's prejudice, or whatever's going on with that person. You're saying the mindset. All that is going to change once we educate ourselves. When you educate yourself, you're going to have a different worldview, a different mindset of how you see things and what's going on. Now, Black people are not taught to hate white people or any other race of people. We're not taught that. Mm-hmm. But what we have experienced is that the people who have harmed us the most, the people who have done the most injustice to us, has been white America. So we are now on alert. And
so how do you balance that with the fact that also who's done the most damage to the Black community is the Black community, but also who's done the most damage to the white community is the white community? Every community does the most damage by proxy to themselves. I'm just wondering how you sort that out.
So I don't think that's a good statement you're making, but I don't think that the Black community has done more damage to the Black community. I think within each community, there are people who harm us because we haven't educated ourselves.
Well, Black on Black crime is similar to white on white crime.
Yeah,
it's very, and I don't know the stats, so forgive me. There's nuance there, I understand, but I'm paraphrasing. But the crossover mm-hmm. is limited. It's like when someone is killed, murdered, let's say, it is so rare, just in general, it is so rare that it's some stranger, right? Stranger danger is very minute. It is usually by somebody they knew, 100%, right. or 99%, whatever, right? Somebody they knew that murdered that person. It's not necessarily as random as we think, is my point.
Yeah. So let's go back to the Black on Black crime. There would be no Black on Black crime or white on white crime or any race of crime on their given race mm-hmm. if it were not for the government. Now, who is in control of the government? So every time we let's take a look at drugs. Drugs was never into the Black community until it was brought into the Black community. Mm-hmm. Liquor, every time you break that government seal, that's from the government. So we have this, and they bring it into the societies that are the poorest. They bring it to societies that are the least educated. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say that you.
Well, then stop voting for those people, and people need to stop voting down the party line. Yeah. I'm a registered independent, but if you look at the food deserts in the Black communities and Hispanic communities, even, and the liquor stores that abound in that area, it's It's circular though at the same time, right?
Yeah.
If something happens here in my neighborhood, there's a Facebook group, this and that. People like, I mean, there's coyotes, right? So they're like coyote alert, or some of these women are clutching their pearls because a car's been parked down the street too long, right? And they'll post this, and I roll my eyes, but generally speaking, everybody's looking out for everybody.
Yeah.
So when you go to a poor neighborhood, which is my opinion, really more the issue of it, are people looking out for themselves? Or sorry, are they looking out for everyone else? I think they do in instances, but I think people are afraid because there's much more violence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you fix that? Right. If I look here and in all my white privileged neighborhood, what's different than a black neighborhood, let's say, or an inner city, or a poor, let's just say poor, with drugs, regardless of, what the race is? What's the difference? So before we define that, the question that I would pose is, should we be saying the other people should be like this? So you have your privilege in your neighborhood, and you've worked hard, and your wife's worked hard, and you've saved your money, and you bought your house, and you did all that stuff. I'm assuming you don't want to see it destroyed. You don't want to see the values come down. And I don't necessarily mean monetarily, but you want to live in a place that's pleasant to come home to. And I'm sure most people do. I get that. But when your thermostat is set at a certain level, you want to maintain that level. Right. So what sets that thermostat? It's our mentality, our privileged mentality to think I deserve better, versus, let's say, in some inner city that says, this is just what I got to do the best with what I got. So should you and I be forcing on them, and I don't mean literal force, but should we even be talking about these ideas so that we go and say, hey, you guys are doing it wrong?
When you say you guys, who are you referring to?
Whoever's not espousing the values that you and me, let's say you and me came together, we wrote a little list and we agreed on something, right? And we go, okay, crime is bad, drugs are bad, fathers should be in the home, right? I know we agree on that. And, a few other key talking points. If we went into that inner city community and started espousing those views, technically, I'm getting philosophical here, but technically, who are we to do that? But at the same time, that's the difference. Our mindset, bringing that mindset into the community, and if that was able to flourish and catch on, like, hey, parents are good, right? Teach your kids, raise your children. Don't leave them on your phones. Don't give them phones when they're 1 year old to babysit, right? How do we level up your education that you're talking about, Coop, to so that their mindset increases in a way that expects and at the end demands better for themselves?
Yeah, I think we all have a responsibility to help others out. That's my belief biblically. That's my belief socially and economically. We have a responsibility to do that. Why would I want to prosper and live in good health when I know that just 3 neighborhoods down, I'm not able to enjoy life that way?
Right.
Now, the challenge that we're going to have is that poor neighborhood is so used to things being the way that it is, they think that's all that there is.
Yeah, the thermostat is set. Yeah. That's the normal.
Yeah.
How do we raise that?
Yeah. It's a constant fight. It's a constant battle. And it may be raised for some, but it's not going to be raised by everyone.
Right.
So it has to be a constant fight and just gradually making changes.
Right.
And that once that one individual changes the mindset that they have, now they need to help out as well.
Right.
So when I was teaching in the inner city schools in Dallas, there are so many kids who did not believe they could go to college. All they wanted to do was graduate from high school, get a good job, and possibly stay in that community. That was it. They couldn't see life outside that community. While myself and the teachers, the staff that was there, while we did everything we could to influence them and bring something positive into their life, they were good while they were at school. Well, they went home and faced that negativity again.
Right.
We had to come back and we had to tear it down, or to use the word that you use, reload something else inside of them. Just
Right.
wipe that down, that
hard drive,
that drive clean, hard drive clean, and put in something.
That was a daily battle, I'm imagining.
It's a daily battle. So people don't want to continue to struggle that way. But let's take you and I personally. You had to fight a daily battle not to succumb to the way that you were raised.
Mm-hmm. I screwed up, and I didn't always do it right.
Yeah, exactly. I had to fight a daily battle, knowing that to have the mindset that all white people are not bad, and I never believed that all white people are not bad. But you're fearful.
It's to some extent. Let's say, even if it's just a little something in the back of your head. Yeah, I hear you.
And I have to fight that every day. Now, do you get tired of fighting that? Because when you hear news like what happened with Floyd, and just what's been happening here in the last couple of weeks, when you hear stuff like this, like, why am I even trying to fight this?
Well, that's why I said earlier, there's stuff you can't nerf all the edges. You can't get to a point where everything is this society. I mean, frankly, it'd be boring. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean murders and stuff like that, but I mean, if you try to just make we'd all just be in, the same outfits marching, you'd look like Nazis, when they march down the street because they're indiscernible. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, this is the point of why we're doing this right now and what I'm trying to do with my channel, because if you can broadcast out to people a different way to think and a different way to look. So if they're at school and they go home and they can flip on something like this and understand there's more out there, that's the goal here. That's where I want to do my part, because like you said, we well, you didn't say this, but I think you meant this. We have a responsibility to help others that are less fortunate.
Yeah, I did say that.
Yeah,
I did say we all have a responsibility.
Oh, I didn't know if you said responsibility, but yeah, okay, good. Yeah. I'm copying you.
I'm putting words in your mouth now.
See, things are changing.
Yeah.
See,
that's the John Doe I know right there. That's the John Doe I know. So, yeah, we're going to get tired, man, and it has to be a daily thing. And while we can't change everyone, if we can just change one person, and that one person changes someone, it's going to happen.
Right.
Now, from a spiritual standpoint, I'm sure you're aware I've got to bring out the spiritual side of things that's going on here. This will be hard for some people to accept, especially if you don't believe the way that I believe. Mm-hmm. So what I'm about to say here may sound strange, but I will clarify it. I don't think that we have a skin issue in this world. I believe that there is a sin issue that's going on. Mm-hmm. What I mean by sin issue, we have so many people who believe so many wrong things, and they perpetuate and do those wrong things. Right. As opposed to having a love for people that's not going to allow you to do that.
Well, you can't love others until you can love yourself, and when you've been raised in a way
that is true,
that has been destructive and abusive, that's hard. But sorry.
Yeah. And the only way that's going to happen for you to learn to love yourself, you need to see how Christ loves you, how God loves you, and then that's going to flip the script on everything. King said, "There's no way hate can drive out hate. Only love can do that."
True.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that.
Agreed.
We cannot love our fellow man until we love ourselves, and that love is going to come from when we understand how God loves us. And when we do that, we're going to want to love other people as well. And then we're not going to do those things that everybody else is doing, because we want to show the love of God inside of us. And while people may not believe in God, when you do things that show that you care for other people, that show that you're concerned of other people, and you do it out of a genuine heart and for no other alternative, that is a God-like characteristic that's in you. You didn't get it from anywhere else. I can't love you because you showed love to me. I have to love you back because that's how God has loved me. So I know how to love you back. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So whether you are a believer or not, or whatever you believe may be, when you do those things that are so genuine, it comes directly from the heart, that's a God-like quality. And when we do those God-like qualities, we're not going to find that we have these skin issues in the world. We have all these sin issues. And sin simply means the bad things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
We have these bad issues going on with us, so we can't love people. But it's going to have to start with us loving each other.
Yeah.
Love yourself first.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good place to end this. I'll actually keep my mouth closed.
Yeah.
I'll let you have the floor. I love it.
Well, hey, man, let me just say this is good what you're doing, man. I think I said to you back in the early years of our boot camp days that you would make a great radio host, even a television host, man.
Well, I need to get this all fixed before I would do that. But thank you.
You'd be surprised at what makeup can do, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
So there's nothing wrong with your look. You got a great look, man. And you have a look that is so unassuming. And when I say unassuming, it's like people can look at you and go, oh, he's this way. And then when they hear you talk, it's like, oh, I pegged him wrong. So you have a. That's
why I can't find a girlfriend. I just need to I need to be able to talk first. I can never get to that point. Then I can sell myself. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
Man. Absolutely. You're doing a good job as a father. And I think you said something earlier. It'd be great for the kids to come home and turn into this and see something different than what they're used to hearing. So keep putting out good, positive messages like this, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's fathers in the home. We need more fathers. We need more healthy 2-parent families. I'll just say this. If you look at all the rioters and you look at all the craziness going out there with the people, not protesting, because that's a different thing, but causing the mayhem, you really think they came from good 2-parent family homes? You know what I mean? Regardless of income, good 2-family parent homes, because you can affect change much more effectively than burning something.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Is my opinion. And you're a great father too. I've loved to watch you over the years and your son grow up and hear about his accomplishments. And, we've discussed things here and there about philosophies on fathering. And I've always admired you for that. Yeah. All right. Coop.
Man. Thanks for having me on, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Love you, man.
I love you too, man.
All right.
I don't know if anyone's ever said that on the air before on your station, but
I don't even get it from my family, so this feels good. All right, my man. I will talk to you later.
All right, peace.
All right.